Something I've always been interested in, but never really studied as much as the other things that I've studied. But I've been seeing it a lot across social media lately. And that is, who were the two witnesses spoken about in Revelation chapter 11? And before I start, a lot of people say, well, it's not important. It's not important. We need to just try to be telling people about God and going to heaven. Yes, I agree with that. But every single bit of the Bible is there because God wanted it to be. So if there is a story about two witnesses in Revelation, you can bet that's important, or it wouldn't be in the Bible. So I love to study and pray and try to interpret what that means, because God gave it to us for a reason. And a lot of people believe it could be symbolism, symbolizing the church, or people believe it could be actual prophets of a long time ago. And I tend to agree. I tend to lean to that possibility. I believe it is Elijah and Moses. And some people said it could be Enoch because he was taken away in heaven. He didn't experience physical death. And neither did Elijah. And those two things would make sense except for the miracles it speaks about that they will perform. And Revelation chapter 11, I'll start in verse 4. These two prophets are the two olive trees and the two lampstands that stand before the Lord of all the earth. If anyone tries to harm them, fire flashes from their mouths and consumes their enemies. This is how anyone who tries to harm them must die. They have the power to shut the sky so that no rain will fall for as long as they prophesy. Okay? That one I believe is Elijah. Because in 1 Kings chapter 17, it's Elijah told the king that he would not allow the rain to fall. And for years, as he commanded it. And let's jump back to Revelation, and that's what that says. Again, they have the power to shut the sky so that no rain will fall for as long as they prophesy. So, meaning when they're doing their prophecy, they can keep the rain from coming down. And this is Moses. This is why I think it's Moses. And they have the power to turn the rivers and oceans into blood and to strike the earth with every kind of plague as often as they wish. That describes Moses and Elijah. And God said nobody's to bother them because they have the power to annihilate you. And now let's keep going. Revelation chapter 11, verse 7. When they complete their testimony, the beast that comes up out of the bottomless pit will declare war against them, and he will conquer them and unalive them. And their bodies will lie in the main street of Jerusalem, the city that is figuratively called Sodom in Egypt, the city where their Lord was crucified. Okay, so we know Elijah went to heaven in a chariot. He never experienced the physical death. Moses was buried by God. God hid his body. Okay, we know God can do anything, so who knows what he did with Moses' body, and nobody ever found it. And nobody would ever find it because God didn't want it found. So that's another reason that, and people say Enoch because Enoch didn't experience the physical death, but I believe Moses for those reasons that I said about the plagues and the miracles. You know, that it specifically said both of those men did those in the Bible. So, and then after that, for 3.5 days, all people, tribes, languages, and nations will stare at their bodies. No one will be allowed to bury them. All the people who belong to this world will gloat over them and give presents to each other to celebrate the death of the two prophets who had tormented them. But after those 3.5 days, God breathed life into them, and they stood up. Terror struck all who were staring at them. Then a loud voice from heaven called to the two prophets, "Come up here." And they rose to heaven in a cloud as their enemies watched. So, it's so interesting. Like I said, it's in the Bible because we're supposed to know it, or God would not have put it in the Bible. And it is part of the end times. And it just makes sense if you study the whole Bible and you know the stories of Elijah and Moses and you've read it, it makes sense. If you're coming in here basically blind to the Bible and you don't know all the miracles performed and God's ways, how he works, how people have obeyed God and things they've done. You learn people in the Bible when you study it. And if you study the Bible, it's easy to come to this conclusion. So I encourage everyone to read your Bible, everybody. But that's my thoughts. I believe for those reasons that I said. that it was Moses and Elijah are the two witnesses written about in Revelation chapter 11. So if we can do it without arguing, I love to hear people's opinions. If you've come to the same conclusion as me, but in a different way, I'd love to know that. Or if you have read through scriptures and you believe it's somebody else, I would love to hear that too. So just drop some ideas in the comments.